What do you envision when you hear the phrase building an ideal marriage? Is it a happily ever after kind of picture? Or is it that every problem is solved and there are no arguments, conflicts, or issues to deal with? When you think of an ideal marriage, do you think of all your needs being met? Or what else comes in mind? Most of the time, our conception about what an ideal marriage entails are influenced by both good and bad advice that we are given from people around us and from the media. But have you asked yourself, what is an ideal marriage in the perspective of God, or according to God's perspective? There are two kinds of unions, a contract and a marriage. I will not say two kinds of marriage because marriage is marriage. There's no bad marriage and good marriage. It is either your marriage is marriage or it is no marriage. And when I say this, what I mean is God's concept of marriage is what makes marriage marriage. If your marriage is not ordained by God, then it's not a marriage. It is a contract. Because what God has not put together, anyone can put asunder. No wonder people can stand in the house of God and still go to court, find a lawyer, and sign divorce papers. That is not marriage. If you believe your marriage was ordained by God truly, then you have no excuse to divorce or separate from your spouse. Most people don't understand the true concept of marriage. That is why they find themselves struggling and feeling miserable in their relationships. If you knew or if you truly understand God's perspective of what marriage is, then you will not find yourself wanting when you face the storms of life. Because even though they are difficult to deal with and unpleasant most times, you will still have that peace in you, that kind of ease which can only be comprehended by those who are in a deep fellowship with God. As the founder of the institution of marriage, God has His special purpose for founding it. And He has a general purpose for instituting marriage into the life of man. And He also has a specific purpose for each and every union He ordains in the lives of men. And if yours is truly ordained by God, then probably He has a vision and a plan for you to work together as a team. So the next thing is the two of you are to discover your vision and plan, which is God's ideal purpose for your union. And if you have already found God's vision or purpose for your marriage, that's great news. That means you at least have clarity in what God wants you to do as a couple. And then the rest is to work towards it to bring the plan of God to pass in your life or make things happen. And normally when it comes to doing the will of God, you can't do the will of God like you tackle your to-do list, where you just list your goals and then start tackling number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. That is not how you do the will of God. But that is not how you go about the plan of God concerning yourself personally and then collectively as a team. The reason why we fail most of the times with our plans is we are not aware or conscious of the level of strength we have, our ability, and how skillful we are at executing those goals. We are not aware of our true state of being and how it is affecting our results. We are not aware of the right amount of resources and things we need to achieve those goals. And if your goals are really noble and worthwhile, that means you need more than your strength to achieve them. And that is when God comes in. If you have a goal, a vision which you can do by yourself, then it is really not worthwhile. Because anything that is in alignment with God's will for your life requires that you tap into the power of God. It requires that the Spirit of God comes upon you so that you are given the ability and the might to achieve those goals. If you can do it on your own, then you don't need God. You can go about your life just like every other pagan around and then still experience success to a level. The only difference between your success and the success of the true Christian is yours will perish, your works will not last, but those of a Christian who is born of God will last even through eternity, and it will follow through and influence the lives of his fellow brethren all around. So what is the purpose of God for your marriage? And it all starts with your understanding of God's concept of why He constituted marriage and your place or the role you and your spouse play in fulfilling the purpose of God concerning marriage. You might be asking right now, you've been talking and talking and talking and talking. What is the point, Glory? Well, the concept of God, or God's concept of an ideal marriage is this. Marriage is the coming together of a man who is in the presence of God, doing the work of God or fulfilling his life purpose and cultivating everything that God has given to him to care for. And that man is in collaboration with a woman who has allowed herself to be prepared by God himself, whether through the ministries of other men and women, which God does a lot of times. And once she is being prepared by God that way, God also shows her how her ministry will help her future husband. So once such a woman who is conscious of her abilities, knows God's place, God's purpose for her life, and the role she will play in the life of her husband, that woman comes together with her husband, and together they fulfill the purpose of God concerning their marriage and their ministry as a whole. So the bottom line is, God's purpose for marriage is the coming together of a man and a woman who are in alignment with his purpose and are living consistently in a way that pleases him for the manifestation of his glory in the lives of all men. So the byproduct of living out God's purpose for your marriage is enjoying a fulfilling fellowship or relationship with your spouse. Being able to successfully raise your children up in the way that pleases God and blesses your life in the process. The reason most people fail in achieving their relationship goals is they go with the intent of grasping or achieving the byproducts of living out God's purpose for your marriage, instead of going for the main thing, which is doing the will of concerning your life as a team. And remember that don't be like those people who use God as a means to an end. The end being that they want their personal needs met or their selfish desires being fulfilled. Doing the will of God is a selfless act. It is a life of sacrifice, which rewards greatly. It is not a life of fulfilling all the desires of the flesh. It is a life whereby you fulfill the needs of your spirit, your true self, your recreated spirit, which was created when you gave your life to Christ. So please don't let the unfulfillment you feel in a relationship blind you from the true thing that God is trying to show you. And the true thing is to know God, do His will, and allow Him to lead you into the greatness that He has prepared for you, to the manifestation of His glory. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe for more videos to educate you in building a thriving marriage and family according to God's design. God bless you.